Welcome to the Citizens Climate Lobby Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference. I want to congratulate the organizers of this conference for creatively adapting to the pandemic by holding an online event today and an in-person one tomorrow. The conference organizers embody the tenacity, resilience, and creativity of so many of our volunteers. I wonder how many of us have had the experience of having our commitment to the people and places that we love lead us to try new things and push outside our comfort zone. We like to say in CCL that this is where the magic happens. Sometimes we take on things that make us very uncomfortable. But I can personally say that it's worth it because you'll also find many wonderful companions to travel with, and the situation that we face needs you as part of the solution. So as many of you know, I recently became CCL's executive director, taking the reins from Mark Reynolds. It appealed to him to use January 20th, Inauguration Day, as the day for his transition to the board and my transition from working under him to becoming your executive director. So perhaps you can understand why an op-ed by Amanda Gorman in the New York Times that day caught my attention. It was titled, "Why I Almost Didn't Read My Poem at the Inauguration." And she started it this way. She wrote, "It's told like this. Amanda Gorman performed at the inauguration, and the rest is history. The truth is, I almost declined to be the inaugural poet. Why? I was terrified." Well, the whole piece is worth reading, but I'll just give you a couple nuggets. She wrote, "I'm a firm believer that often terror is trying to tell us of a force far greater than despair. In this way, I look at fear not as cowardice, but as a call forward, a summons to fight for what we hold dear." You know, there's lots of things to make us feel afraid these days, but you're here, I believe, because you've been called forward, and so I thank you for that. And on the days when the call feels uncomfortable to me, I think of you and I keep going. Ms. Gorman ends her piece this way. She says, "And yes, I am still terrified every day, yet fear can be love, trying its best in the dark. So do not fear your fear. Own it, free it. This isn't a liberation that I or anyone can give you. It's a power you must look for, learn, love, lead, and locate for yourself. Why? The truth is, hope isn't a promise we give. It's a promise we live. Tell it like this, and we, like our words, will not rest. And the rest is history." So thank you. And now some further words of welcome from Senator Coons.
Hi, I'm U.S. Senator Chris Coons from Delaware. Welcome to the Citizens Climate Lobby Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference. I want to thank CCL for holding this conference again and express my sincere appreciation to Delaware members Marty Hopkins and Beth Chahes for being such fierce leaders on climate change at both the state and national levels. At last year's conference, I expressed my optimism that 2021 would be a year that brought climate change initiatives to the top of our domestic and global agenda, and it sure did. Every part of the world is today experiencing the impacts of climate change, and as the lowest lying state in our nation, with an economy partly dependent on tourism and agriculture, Delaware is on the very front line of this ongoing global crisis. But this last year also brought some hope. One of President Biden's first actions was to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, and in Congress we've worked to make historic climate and clean energy investments that will benefit Delaware and our country, both through the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure law. Yet we still have so much more to do in the months ahead. I'm continuing to advance carbon pricing and border carbon adjustment policies in Congress and to work with our closest allies, Canada, the UK, and EU, because I believe it's the most effective way to align our climate ambition with our closest allies, to reduce carbon pollution, especially in the industrial sector across the West, and apply real pressure on other countries to decarbonize their export-oriented heavy industries and reduce their emissions as well. With significant investments now underway from President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law and a productive COP26 summit in Glasgow, we've made important strides this past year. I'm proud I was able to lead the first ever bipartisan delegation from the Senate to COP26 and learned a great deal from our meetings and our engagements in Glasgow. As we begin 2022, there's much more work we need to do, including the critical and unfinished work of enacting billions in clean energy tax credits and the creation of a new civilian climate corps. I'm not giving up on those important goals, and you can continue to play a critical role in that progress. Thank you for your commitment to climate action and to pushing elected leaders like myself and my colleagues to keep taking serious action to address climate change. I'm grateful for the work you've done and will do, and I look forward to tackling the challenges of this climate crisis together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chris Coons and Madeleine for those inspiring words and insights into how we might chart our course for a livable future. Wow, I'm so delighted to see so many of you today. Hello, beautiful people. My name is Sabrina Subinfu, and I serve as a Mid-Atlantic Regional Coordinator for Citizens Climate Lobby. It took a lot of dedicated volunteers to put together this conference, and I hope you will have a chance to thank them. I especially want to acknowledge the support of our state coordinators. Thaddeus Waterman for Maryland, Beth Shages for Delaware, and Callie Hancock for New Jersey. They are part of our support team for the Plenary. Any content questions you have, please send them to Ask Me Beth. Any logistic questions, please send them to Zoom host Thad. We also want to acknowledge the many volunteers who made this event possible, as well as our partners at Bowie State University for our face-to-face event tomorrow. Thank you for taking this brave journey of planning a hybrid regional conference with all the uncertainty of 2022. So, welcome, brave souls, to charting our course for a livable future. Let's begin discussions with 4 leaders associated with a range of regional and national organizations. Wandra Ashley Williams, Sevim Kalyoncu, Jack Thompson, and Tykee James. You can read more about them through the links provided in the chat in Eventbrite and Grenadine. I hope you will focus your attention on what they discuss as thought leaders in charting our course for a livable future and continue this conversation throughout the conference and beyond. To frame this conversation, I'm going to evoke lessons from last year's plenary. We want to be vulnerable enough as we seek to understand one another and work on the allyships needed for that livable future. We want to have courageous conversations, which are really loving conversations. Let's start off our discussion with this question to the panelists. In the spirit of courageous, loving conversations, please provide some insights into your work in charting a course for a livable future with 1 sentence on your approach, 1 sentence for your goal, and 1 story about something you're proud of. Wandra, will you please start us off? Wandra, you're still muted?
Computer here. Okay, sorry about that. I'm using a different computer, so I forgot to do that. I just want to thank you, Sabrina, for inviting me to be part of the conversation today. You know, what we're doing with Climate XChange is trying to reduce the amount of emissions in our air, reduce pollution, and so with that, upon taking this position, when we talk about my approach to this work, when taking this position, I realized that it would take political leadership, in fact, political will, to enact policy that will cut emissions across all sectors of the economy, and a strong, diverse, dedicated coalition to advocate for the passage of the policy. My goal was to build a diverse group of stakeholders working to pass just and equitable climate legislation. When I took over this position in 2019, we did not have a coalition. Therefore, I am proud of the fact that at the end of the session in 2020, which ended because of COVID-19, we had 19 partners. And today I can say that we have 64 partners of our coalition, diverse coalition, including faith-based organization, labor, health, civil rights, youth groups. Diversity, inclusion, equity, justice are in my blood. Did you want me to give a quick story at this point, Sabrina, or wait to do that later?
That'd be great with a quick story, and then we'll hand it off to the rest of the panelists. And then hopefully we can have a discussion to delve deeper into some of the themes.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I serve on the National Board of Directors for the NAACP. And when I took that position, the then chairman appointed me to several committees, okay? Housing committee, audit committee, convention planning committees that I could relate to because my background is in, my professional background is in business management, politics, elected official, and worked in the community on diversity issues. However, she also appointed me to the ECJ committee, which is the Environmental Climate Justice Committee. While I support the efforts to move into a clean economy and protect our country, our planet and everything, that is not a space that I was familiar with. The justice part of it, yes, but the technical part of it, no. And I knew that I would have to really dig down and really learn that. And I just did not want to do it at that time. So I went to the chair and I said, listen, I can't do this. And she said, well, listen, I need you to do this. And so I am going to keep you on this committee because I know you will be committed and you will do what you need to do. And that is what I did. I learned everything I needed to learn, worked with all of our committee members. And when this position was presented to me, I saw it was just another extension of what I've been doing over the years. I could bring the tools that I have. Yes, my professional, my political, my campaigning, my environmental and climate experience, as well as the deep-rooted diversity, inclusion that I have in me, who I am. That is who I am. And so it was easy for me to take that particular position. So I guess what I want to leave you with is that when a door opens, oftentimes we don't want to, but it is the door that we need to have the courage to walk through. Thank you.
Thank you, Wandra. I love that story, and that theme of courage just goes, I think we're going to be seeing that all throughout, right? Sevim, and then Jack, and then Tykee.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thanks again for another opportunity to work with CCL. Yes, these courage stories are touching me personally. I hope I hold on to them after today when addressing a lot of the challenges that come, public speaking being one of them for me, but we'll ignore that for right now. So looking at the questions that you wanted us to address, I'm going to jump ahead to goal and then come back to approach, because I'm going to talk first about Green Muslims specifically. I'm the executive director of Green Muslims. And the goal of this nonprofit organization, which is based in the Washington, D.C. area, but really tries to reach out to anyone and everyone who's interested in learning or getting involved. The first goal is to get people, in particular Muslims, American Muslims, to connect with nature, and as a result to get involved with climate action. So by connecting through nature, you start to care about it, and then you make the efforts to get more involved, because it turns out, especially here in the US, I think this interest is growing within the American Muslim community, but we still have a long way to go. So Green Muslims tries to provide that bridge. Our approach, which right now is very much influenced by my own personal interests, because I am a naturalist and I teach children about nature. Well, I try to take people out into nature so that they develop a love for the earth. And that love is not just seeing the physical beauty, but also developing a spiritual connection with nature, the environment, that automatically brings concern and automatically makes you want to care for it. and to get involved in climate action and in general environmental activities. And from a Muslim perspective, it goes beyond as well, because our faith teaches that we humans are, the Arabic term is khalifa, but this term is translated frequently these days in English as stewards. So if we are the khalifa of the earth, we are by definition the stewards of the earth, and so we're obligated to care for it. So my personal take is to fall in love with nature so you take care of the earth, understand the interconnectedness of all of it, from everything to an ant to a human, the trees, the rocks, all of it matters, it all works together. And so we push this through Green Muslims activities, especially with youth and families. So the last question, the story about something that you were proud of, I was trying to think of specifics from Green Muslim activities, but was encouraged to tell my own personal story because it does directly relate to why I do what I do through Green Muslims. I just happened to have grown up being raised Muslim American in a small town in Alabama. And so a religious community was not really part of my youth, my upbringing during my youth. And so I found that a lot of my spiritual connection was through nature, and that the woods, in fact, became not only the place, the house of worship where I could be to connect with God, but also God's message to me, as if it was a book of God. And I remember years ago, people thinking this idea was a little bit quirky. They didn't, hate it or anything, but it's really growing in interest right now and appreciation. It's not that hard now to talk to my fellow Muslims, and especially children, about how, wow, this beautiful thing that was created by God is one of God's books, and we need to be learning from it. And so that idea does seem to be growing within the community, and I'm very excited about that. So thank you very much for letting me share.
Thanks, Sevim. Thanks, Sabrina, also for putting this together. I know you've been working really hard on this. It's great to see this all come together today. I'm Jack Thompson. I'm the founder and president of Fridays for Future Delaware. We're a fully youth-led and youth-founded group operating in made up of high school students in Delaware. I also work as a local policy advisor for Fridays for Future USA, the national body of Fridays for Future, and I work as a policy advisor within the Fridays for Future International network as well. So just an accomplishment that I'm somewhat proud of. We were kind of integral in getting the RPS passed in Delaware last year, the Renewable Portfolio Standard, which essentially just said that 40% of energy that is bought in Delaware has to come from renewable resources by a certain date. That date was 2035, and bills following the passing of the RPS bill, we were able to get that raised to 50%, and are kind of steadily growing, and are looking at 60% renewables by 2035 in Delaware, which obviously isn't enough, but I mean, it's definitely a start, and it's a way to get our foot in the door. I think a story I wanted to tell, which I don't know if this would be better suited later in the thing, but this is something that I've really been thinking about a lot. In my work as a policy advisor for Fridays for Future International, I had the chance to work with someone from Fridays for Future Zimbabwe, and working with them on some of their political aspects, which I don't know how familiar everyone is with the political makeup of Zimbabwe. It's not a stable place, and it's not a place that responds well to criticism of anything the government does. So this was a really interesting call to be on, and really talk to this guy and see like how different it is, and how lucky we are also to be in a place where we can enact such change. And I think it's kind of almost our responsibility, just based on that, to use like the system that we've got set up, and especially in the United States, to drive change. Like we have a system here that we can really take advantage of, and really get change that we want to see. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I'm really looking forward to discussing with everybody else today. Can't wait to see where we can get into. Thanks.
Hey, my name is Tykee. I use he, him pronouns. I'm based out of Washington, D.C., the traditional lands of the Nakachunk peoples, and I am the co-founder and co-chair of the board of directors for Amplify the Future. Amplify the Future, well, we want to amplify the future of opportunities for justice, joy, and equity and conservation for historically excluded communities. What do I mean by that? Historically excluded. Well, today we may identify them as marginalized people, people who are pushed towards the margins. What does that mean even? It means that there are systemic barriers and there are a legacy of policy decision-making that have either put resources that have been unhelpful in certain areas, and those areas can be defined by zip codes, and those zip codes have people in it, and those people are often Black, brown, and poor. There can be some or there. There's white poor people, you know, there are Black rich communities that also have, you know, share similar layers of oppression. But Amplify the Future seeks to address some of these things. And we want to do it through supporting students in science, technology, engineering, art, and math, STEAM, an undergraduate and graduate level. We want to put joy into the movement that we are trying to, where we are trying to advance justice. And we have 2 special programs that can do that, that are working on that. And, you know, ultimately, where I'm seeing our approach as an organization has been informed by our own backgrounds. We are Black and brown led, and, you know, specifically about Amplify the Future, we have a scholarship program called Birders Fund, and for Black and Latinx birders, there's a scholarship for you. It's coming from the support of the birding community. And the approach of that scholarship program, what I think makes it unique is that it is informed by my own experience with systemic poverty. So when I was very, very poor, and I'm still pretty poor, but when I was very, very poor, I worked in a state representative's office. And so other very, very poor people would also come into that office for assistance from the state, because the state would have programs like SNAP and Medicare and LIHEAP, you know, I don't have to, if you don't know what those things mean, just know that those were the constituents. And it was very easy to see that if you were eligible for one program because of your income, then you'd be eligible for other programs because of that income. And if you did all of this work to fill out one application and then the office tells you to go to another office, and then that office says you got to go there, well, it was my job to be the one-stop shop for all of that. So when you apply to Birders Fund, yes, you're applying to a scholarship, but you're also applying to be a part of a community of folks that with that application that you worked very hard on, you worked very hard on this application. We keep that and we share that with our trusted partners to find opportunities for you to advance your career, whether that's all paid expense birding excursions, whether that's paid internships, whether that's a cohort specific group for a bird banding camp. And we'll be having that actually this summer for the first time with one of our key partners, Manamet. That's just an example of one of the programs and the approach that informs that program. But Amplify the Future hopes to be a bigger umbrella for supporting folks in different ways who want to move forward in the conservation movement with equity, justice, and joy. And a small story, since that's the motif here, I'll tell everybody my spark bird. What's a spark bird? Spark bird is the bird that got you into birding. Any birders in the chat, tell us your spark bird. My spark bird was the belted kingfisher. And I was in high school at the time. The first job that I had was an environmental educator. And the first assignment in that job was kind of like a book report. I was a part of a group of students. Each of us were given a species. I was given the belted kingfisher. And so I would have to look it up in the Peterson guide and the Audubon guide and the Sibley guide, you know, take some notes, learn about it. And I came to work the next week and I actually saw the bird. So this was something that I put a lot of time into seeing it fictionally, theoretically on paper, but then to see it actually practically, like doing its thing in the creek, in the habitat that the book said I would find it in. It having that presence for that moment, that now I was thinking not just about seeing the bird, but how the bird got there, how this park got here, how the community next to the park became. And it wasn't just a presence of focusing on the bird as much as it was a presence of focusing on like the ecosystem and the community around it and the connections of public health and environmental conditions. And then from that, I, then realized that I was on a path to do more conservation stuff. And that ends my beginning remarks.
Thank you all. I'd love to open it up for any of you to ask each other questions. I'll just briefly share some of the keywords and themes that I think I've heard. Of course, as a scientist, I love that word ecosystems, and really understanding that we all do influence each other. We all interact with each other. I like you guys to think about, and of course, CCL members too, and every member of any other group, how we can work together to really amplify each other's work and work toward that greater we. So if there's any specific questions or comments or thoughts that you have about how we could work together, or any themes or question that you want to delve deeper into.
I don't mind getting us. Okay, Jack almost beat me to the draw there. Got to be quick. You got to press Alt and A. That's the quickest way to do it. If you try to use the mouse, anyway. So we shared some stories, and I like the story sharing because I think that brings some reality, some palatability to how we're describing these abstract ideas. So can someone share a story about demonstrating solidarity? Either you're doing your thing and someone else is trying to act and work in solidarity with you, or if you are then trying to act in solidarity with them, or however that may look for you. And to make it easy, I'll get it a little bit started because it wouldn't be fair if I sprung that question without having an answer of my own. So I brought up Manomet. Manomet being one of our partners. They're a really cool bird conservation organization. Big fan of their work. And they have this birding band camp. And well, let me actually take a couple steps back. A lot of people that work in bird conservation are white. This is just the arena. These are the waters we're swimming in. Demographically speaking, by numbers, by statistics, there's just more white people doing bird conservation than Black and brown people. So it is in the effort to make it diverse, we have to first make it inclusive. So we have to make this space that isn't inclusive to differences, intentionally and unintentionally. We have to change the binding force of that space, the inclusivity of that space, in order to welcome more diversity. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. And when you are a nonprofit, your programs are a key feature of your existence. So the ability to change those programs to get certain outcomes can be really meaningful. So Manomet being this organization, bird conservation organization, and Amplify the Future being this new, smaller organization, we found a partnership where we could get our applicant community, so the folks who applied to our scholarship, not everybody who won, but people that applied and that were available, because they opt in, like they sent us their application and they opt in. Manomet is carving out just a single cohort of our applicants to go to their bird banding camp this summer. And that is something that I think shows, hey, as an organization, we have all this stuff on paper. This is how we want to exist, but we realize we have to change things. We don't know what those things are, but in a conversation with us, we discovered together, we co-created what this opportunity would look like for folks to enter the bird conservation field without throwing them into the frying pan, so to speak. That this is also a way they can build community with one another, being Black and brown folks from all across the country, and having even still a diversity of view in where they want to go in their bird conservation career. But now one thing that they can benefit too is just that kingship. And the way Monument just demonstrated that, like, hey, as Monument, we can't make that happen because we don't have the people. But Amplify, you can help make this happen because you have the people. We have the program. Now, how do we design this to make it make sense? And that for me, that was an example of solidarity, of being very transparent about our self-interest, being very transparent about what the mutual benefit is and agreeing to that mutual benefit. And then, can't wait to tell everybody how the camp goes. I won't be going because, I'm not a bird bander, but I'm pretty sure it will go well. So, question rephrased again. Tell us a story about demonstrating solidarity.
Thanks for that great story, Tykee. Jack, did you want to share it as well?
I can try and figure out some kind of story here as I go if you want. I was gonna try and throw like a prompt that I had in my head in, but I want to cut off Tykee's here. So going back to that conversation I had with the activist from FF Zimbabwe, I think something that stood out to me in a solidarity kind of sense is just, I mean, working as a policy advisor, you kind of take on a role of like therapist at the same time for someone that like isn't really used to policy stuff or isn't used to being able to talk about policy stuff, like that kind of thing. So then they'll sit down with you and they're like, oh my God, I have like 2 hours worth of stuff to tell you about like the political scene here. And like people have really invested time and really a lot of energy into stuff like this. So I mean, oftentimes what ends up happening is I sit here and just listen and kind of hear what they say for 2 hours, and they'll talk about like all of their local like political scene, like how it's made up, all of that kind of stuff. And that's a really interesting thing to me. And coming out of that conversation, we were actually able to draw up a plan for them to engage their government and engage government officials in a very safe way and in a very effective way. It's been working pretty well. So I mean, I don't know if that even closely answers the question. It was just me kind of trying to impromptu figure something out, but that would be my solidarity kind of moment of just how can I help you be a better activist in this sense? Like how can I be a resource for you, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my story.
Thanks, Jack. So I do think that Sevim and Wandra, I'm sure, has stories because they both work very extensively in the communities, right? Wandra, with all the coalition building you've had with Build Back Maryland, is there a particular story that you'd like to share?
Oh, I don't know if there's a particular story as such, but I think that, excuse me, the whole experience and listening to Tykee talk, I think that it was just so important for us to not just be inclusive, but open-minded, and to really listen, to listen to different segments of our state and different organizations and definitely frontline communities. I think that what was clear, what we did was develop shared values. We brought everybody to the table and let's talk about developing principles, but let's talk about our values. And to just realize that or recognize that, we might come from different walks of life, but we do value a lot of the same things. And if we don't share that, we'll never know. And if we are not open, those of us, and I agree, definitely in Maryland, most of the environmental groups don't look like me, okay? They are not African American, they're not Latino, they're not Native American, they are basically white. And, but they're addressing issues of concern in those communities. And so it is always good to bring everybody to the table, to not just have them have a seat at the table, but give them a voice. And you will learn so much. I always say this,
Wandra, for some reason, you got muted after you said, I always say this.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but it's back now. I always say this, that we spend millions of dollars on a lot of different issues and concerns, right? Crime, other things, and we're getting nowhere. But are we bringing the people most affected to the table and listening to them, right? That doesn't happen too often. And once we do that, I truly believe we will advance a little faster. But I think that's, for me, that is what is so important. And that is what we have figured out in our coalition. That's why we work together, is that, you know, we all have a voice, and we all have to breathe clean air.
Mhm.
So let's just talk about how we do it and how we can do it together.
Beautiful, Wandra. Thank you. I do think that all four of you shared that commonality of broadening more people at the table. You know, Jack with his work with high schoolers, right? We need more young people, and Tykee with his work with Black and Brown community, people who have been marginalized in the past. And Wandra, you have shared your incredible insights into how we need to go beyond the environmental groups, right? Because everybody should be concerned about the clean air, clean water, and whatever else is in the environment. And Sevim, of course, is really connecting that spiritualness to inspire us to really go with that joy that Tykee shared about going into actions with joy, equity, and justice. And often religion inspires us to do that. So that's the commonality that I see among all of you. And believe it or not, we're coming up to our Q&A. So Sevim, would you like to share something before we open up to Beth to see what's up with the Q&A?
Well, let's see, just a quick thought on the topic at hand, because Tykee brought up another question about solidarity, which then of course fits into this theme. I realize, so Green Muslims is a relatively small organization, and we're focused on a specific community, trying to help that community connect with an issue and various issues that we have not generally been that involved with. And so here I am trying to think, what have we done? What have we done in terms of solidarity? Maybe not enough. God willing, in due time, we'll have more opportunities, especially for partnerships. We're already working out a plan for a project this coming year where we're going to share Buddhist and Islamic thoughts about the environment and environmental activism. But I realize, even though we may not have been the ones to reach out, we, in just the most recent years, we've received so many invitations to participate in panels just like CCL's today, so that there is more diversity. And the change that has occurred just over the last couple of years is really amazing. It gives me a lot of hope. I know there's a lot more to do, and we have to do a lot within our own group as well. But just being invited to the table to provide another perspective gives me hope, because one thing I've always known, going back to that original story of Alabama life in the woods, sometimes it's hard to connect. Well, it can be impossible to connect with everyone, and it can be hard to connect with major groups. But if you work one-on-one, you're going to find something that you can connect with and through. And I do think that can grow to different groups. So it could be faith, it could be love of nature, it could be concern about health because of problems with pollution, but we find those individual issues to connect with, and then our connections grow from there.
Thanks so much. Beth, are there questions that you'd like to ask from the, ask me, Beth?
Sure. First, I have a pretty quick question for Tykee, which was, someone would like to know more about the organization that he mentioned, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, Manumet. And if you could, Tykee, drop a little bit more information about that in the chat. I think some people would really appreciate that. And so I also have a question from Madeleine, which is, how have each of you built your coalitions or organizations during the pandemic? has been a challenge for all of us, I'm sure, but we'd like to hear how you have handled it.
If I may jump in, it's just a continuation of what I was already saying. I am a big fan of interacting in person. I did not take everything moving to Zoom a couple years ago very well. But looking back on the last 2 years, there have been many a silver lining to this pandemic. One, now more people are going outdoors, and Green Muslims has a ton more work to do, and we're taking people hiking every month and doing more classes. But also Zoom has allowed us to connect all over the world. And it's made it so much easier to form these coalitions just by being invited to speak on a panel like this. So there has really, in some ways, it's made it a lot easier. And sometimes I think about what we'll do after this is all over. Well, I'm working on my attitude towards connection over the internet, because it really does allow a lot more connection. It makes it much easier. And I hope we can maintain all of these connections that we've formed. But that has been the silver lining to meeting on Zoom rather than in person. We can meet more people more often.
And I'll have to agree with you on that. Zoom has really opened up the possibilities for coalition building. The one thing that we did, CXC, I did here in Maryland, is hire an organizer, because realize that, we can't do the in-person, but we could still, recruit. And so we have the Zoom meetings. You don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about the traffic, getting to Annapolis. Or we're a statewide organization. And so there are people on the Eastern Shore who would not be able to attend if we were in person meeting on this side of the river, not the river, of the bridge, as I always say, and people on west part of the state. So, there are some benefits to the pandemic. And I do believe building a coalition is one of those benefits, because it's easy for people to, get up in the morning, put something nice on top, comb your hair, and, participate in a panel discussion, or just attend a webinar so you can learn more about an organization and sign up. We can send out the links. You don't have to, sign up on paper. Now we have the links to make it so much easier for people to sign up to support certain efforts. So for us, it was a challenge in the beginning to figure out how we were going to do it. But once we figured it out, even we had a lobby day with about 150 individuals. Now, had we had that lobby day actually in Annapolis, we would have been lucky to have 50 people attend. And we had so many legislators, because they could go from one meeting to the next meeting without leaving their home or their office. So to give them more of an opportunity to participate. So we had so many legislators who participated in that lobby day. So it really has been an advantage to us, to be very honest with you.
Okay, do either of the other panels? Okay, Jack, looks like you're on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of this. Like, I'm not going to get on a plane to go to like the UK to talk to somebody about stuff like that. Like, all of this just makes a lot more sense, One thing I will say that's a major caveat to it, though, is that it's kind of led to a lot of burnout in certain like environmental areas. Like, if when you know everything, like when you know every single like initiative that's going on, it's kind of hard to be like, all right, which one do I actually want to do? Like, and people get overbooked themselves and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's really the only downfall. I was all online for like the first semester of last year. It was amazing. I just fine to being online, but that definitely has been a drawback of it. And it's a lot harder to get people out of their houses now. Like to actually try and stage an in-person event. They're like, no, why I could just join on Zoom and be there in spirit, and kind of thing. So that's definitely there are drawbacks to it too, but it's definitely been a blessing.
Freedom Birders is a project I started actually last January that we knew was going to be all virtual for maybe as long as it existed. So the question was, you know, in awareness of burnout and in the awareness of interested peoples who can find things that they're interested in just a click away, how do we help folks feel immersed into an experience that is virtual? You know, this is immersive, you know, you can hit things in the chat and then we'll react. We'll be like, wow, you know, and, you know, you're seeing us. We created we call it our Freedom Birdhouse, which is the best attempt at two guys that don't know graphic design, but have a big heart for education for all ages. And our efforts to demonstrate the connectivity of civil rights history and bird education. You know, and that's again something that's open for all ages. It's a self-guided digital resource library, and that's like the technical term for it. But really, it's a page where you can just click around, find things that you like. It can, you know, back in the day, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but back in the day, Wikipedia was the most entertaining thing on the internet. And I would play this game with my friends where we would kind of like see who can find the connection between, like, okay, on the Wikipedia page for Apple, how can we go from that to like a Wikipedia page for Curacao, you know, like how do you make that connection? And it was just fun. You could click on things, you read things, and it kind of takes from that idea. But, you know, some of these things that we have behind doors, these digital framed doors, will teach you about the Freedom Riders, will teach you about Black Birders Week, things that inspired the Freedom Birders Project. It will take you also through, you know, some cool funnels of bird education, understanding the Lenape names for birds, as well as history in Cape May, New Jersey. It's a lot of far-reaching stuff, and it's only going to grow. But yeah, on the question of getting people with the pandemic, it's mostly about how do you make an immersive experience.
Sabrina, did you have final questions for everyone?
I do, but I think if you have a quick question, we could cover one quick question if you like.
Okay. Okay, so this one might be pretty quick. When you're not working on the climate movement, what helps you refill your cup?
If we weren't in a pandemic, I would say travel, because I love to visit different places and learn different things from different, you know, environments and all. But family and the love for family, that is what keeps me going.
Mine's much less wholesome, caffeine. I go right back to school after I'm done with climate work. So I mean, I don't really get much of the break. So I'm just like constantly trying to look for like 10 minutes to just like close my eyes for a minute and kind of either nap or try to nap or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And just little tiny breaks built in throughout the day just to kind of take a deep breath and have some quiet. That's about all I can.
Great. Those are superpowers, naps and deep breaths. Tykee and Sevim, did you want to add to that?
One of the things that I do, if you follow me on Instagram at Tykee James, I do a lot of cooking. Like I recently got really into cooking, and then also recently I got into proving that, you know, like I can cook. I don't need anybody's approval. But recently I got into throwing it on the internet just to, you know, just to see what happens. And, you know, it's been quite a journey. One of the most recent dishes I made was a pasta salad with a blueberry dressing. And in order to make a savory blueberry, like it's like a there's mint involved, there's levels, there's just, again, it's on the Instagram, check it out. But yeah, I refill my cup by filling up my plate. You know what I'm saying?
That sounds great, Tykee. I can't believe that we're actually right on the hour, but I do want to see if anybody wants to share one word or phrase that you took away from this conversation. You each got like 10 seconds to do it.
I would say passion. I think everyone is passionate from their own perspective about our environment. So passion would be my word.
I'm going with communication. We just have to keep it up because there are so many things that we can share.
Okay, great. Got 10 more seconds.
I'll say community. It's a lot of different angles of addressing climate stuff on here, so that's great.
Empowerment.
Empowerment. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for listening deeply in the discussion of the journeys, barriers, and thoughts for charting our course for livable future. We hope that this is a continuation of our conversation from previous years to get to know our community and form allyship to chart a better future.